All right. Well, I'm delighted to say we've got Alex Wootton from Connacht with us here. Alex, how are you getting on?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
How does that sound?
Enjoying myself.
How does being a Connacht player sound at the moment for you?
Yeah, slightly strange. Definitely still strange because I'm still living in Limerick. So driving through the estates and driving around town with my Connacht kit on is a little bit different, for sure. But it's something which I'm cherishing.
Tell me a little bit about how that actually comes about. Like, where does that conversation begin, and at what point do you kind of go, actually, yeah, this makes sense for me?
Yeah, well, for me, it was back in January. I had only just come back from injury in the November before. I played 2 games for Munster, and I suppose the conversation happened with Andy in January. It's tricky because I was still under contract, you see, so there was ways of getting around it. But one way or another, we got in touch. Munster allowed that to happen, and an opportunity arose. And I think I would be stupid not to take it.
Anytime we've had Andy Friend on the show, we were in Galway last year doing a piece with him. You kind of come away going, I wouldn't mind just spending a little bit more time picking that man's brains about, some personal problems I might be having, or some advice about how to deal with my kids. It's like he's got a zen and a wisdom that kind of just comes off him.
Absolutely, and that's one of the first things I noticed when I first had my first conversation with him over the phone, was how easy he was to speak to, first of all, and how he just gets you. And well, he got me anyway, and I got him, I felt. And it was something like you just said, when I put the phone down, I wanted to almost call him back again and ask him more questions and all the rest of it. He's a very interesting character. You learn a lot from him when you speak to him, not just about rugby, but life stuff as well. And it really just fell into place, I think, with Andy. I mean, I've only known him now, obviously, since January, but really face-to-face for 2 months. And I suppose the big word that you could stick in front of his name, for me anyway, and I know for a lot of other people here in Connacht, is trust. So that's kudos to him, I suppose, and people around him.
When you said he got you, what part of you did he get? What was the thing that made you go, yeah, he understands what's going on here?
Well, he understood where I was coming from. I was coming from a position where I was at Munster. I wasn't playing rugby, it's obvious to see. And I just come off the back of an injury. And I suppose you could see where I was coming from in relation to what I wanted to pursue. Obviously you can hear I'm not from Ireland. So I came to Ireland to play rugby, and that wasn't happening. So he just understood what I wanted to do and the next steps. And he put something on the table which, like I was saying before, would be stupid not to take hold of. And there's still a hell of a lot of work to be done. There's a plan. There's a plan, short term for me anyway, because like we were saying before, it's a loan agreement. So I can only concentrate really on the next year. But I feel that with him and with the people around him and the squad, there's definitely a good buzz around it, and I'm excited for it.
In professional sport is such a weird, unusual and unnatural scenario where a change of scene, a new voice, a little bit of confidence can take you to a position that you 5 months before you didn't think was possible. I was reading somebody today was one of the Barcelona players who was talking about the experience of playing with Messi, and 1 week it's a complete disaster. You think your career is about to end, and the next week you're scoring the winning goal and everything feels amazing. Most of us have highs and lows in our jobs, but it doesn't go from extreme high to being out of the team and having an existential crisis.
No, I mean, you look back over the past 3 years for me anyway. I had a hell of a high in the 2017-18 season, playing knockout rugby in Europe with Munster. And then, unfortunately, I had an injury which got in the way, but everyone has injuries. And then it was really, for me, I look back now and, that it gave me a hell of a lot of strength to kind of come back through that. I mean, I look what happened in the past 2 years. I didn't play a lot of rugby for whatever reason it was. And in doing so, I think now, I think things happen for a reason. I think now I'm a hell of a better person from it. And I think I'm a better player as well, because like you're saying there, you get the highs and lows. I've learned the hard way about taking, for instance, the weekend was a high, obviously, first cap for Connacht and a win. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I'd be jumping around the room, but now I know next week could be a bad game. It's all about keeping the kind of mellow middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely celebrate the highs as well when they come, because and not that there aren't going to be that many of them, but you don't get too many first caps where you just look so at ease in that backline, and that backline looks so fluid. Like, I'm kind of, watching the TV, you're in and out, and you're like, hang on a second, 7 points, rewind. It's like, Connacht had a scrum in their own 22, and next thing, they're tearing down the sideline with these beautiful hands. And it's like, wow, this is just like watching the Connacht team that won the league a couple of years ago under Pat Lam.
Yeah. Look, it's something we really do work on in training, which is kudos to the coaches, to be honest. So when it came to the game, it really just happened. And what excites me more is that with the nation going forward, because what's exciting, can we go? Because we can do that. That's our benchmark now. We need to not basically get any lower than that, and that excites a lot of players. And that's one thing as well. Since coming to Connacht, it's so much excitement. Everyone thinks how good something can be. They're never really looking at obviously everyone's got their head screwed on, but there's not many people thinking, yeah, what about this? What about that? It's, we're going for something and it's going to work. It's very positive,
And you've clearly responded to it as well. Like, there was not a second, there was no doubt, there was no second guessing. There was just this is where I'm supposed to be. This is my role. And yeah, we are ripping your defense to shreds in this one moment. It was great to watch.
Yeah, no, it really wasn't, to be honest with you. First text I got after the game was from my fiance Lucy, and it was it's great to see you out there with a smile on your face. It's been so long, and that I think really was just you get a lot of people saying that, like you've just said there. It was great to watch, but to be honest with you, it was even better to play in.
I'm sure. Come here. You talked about your injury a couple of times there. What was the injury, and how bad did that get?
Yeah, look, it was something which was tricky, to say the least. We flew away to South Africa, if you can remember, before the quarterfinals against Racing, and I played against the Kings, and basically I ruptured my patellar tendon, and it was obviously then I missed the game basically against the Cheetahs, and then the following week we played Racing. Wasn't obviously the best game. We got knocked out, and then pretty much missed the pre-season. Played 2 or 3 games. I think I played actually 6 games. I played 23 games that year, the 2017-18 season, and I played 6 games the following season. And it was just an ongoing issue. Tried everything under the sun, and then it became evident that I needed to have surgery. So I had surgery the back end of that season then. And then that's when I came back in November. And it's amazing because I look back now, and COVID was the best thing that happened to me as well. It gave me extra time to be able to rehab and sort niggles out. And I really feel revamped and refreshed.
I don't know that much about the patellar tendon. Is that at the back of the knee? Is that one?
No, it's basically it's underneath your patella, so your kneecap.
Okay.
So underneath there's a rupture, and there's a bit of other damage in there as well. But it was a bit complicated. But I got flown out to Sweden, and he sorted me out, to be honest. Hacken, Alfred.
Right. So that it's great that there is access to that level. So were you actually injured for the Racing game that you played in? Because you started that match, isn't that right?
I started that game, yeah. would I say I'm injured? I wasn't 100%. I don't think. Looking back, it was funny because the season before, I was obviously in the development squad, and I remember there was about 3 or 4 injuries in the game coming into actually the Scarlets game in the final. Do you remember when Munster lost? And I'd pulled my hamstring against Connacht, believe it or not, I think 2 weeks before, and I got pulled into an office with Razzie, and he said, "Woots, are you ready to go this weekend? There's a few injuries, and I need you ready. Are you ready?" And I said, I don't think I am now. And I remember leaving the office thinking, why did I say that? Why did I say that? And lo and behold, a year later, I got asked the same question, and I said, 100% ready for it, 100% ready for it. And looking back, the game didn't go well, but at the end of the day, it had adrenaline and all the rest of it. It didn't hold me back. There was a few things that went wrong, and I learned a hell of a lot from that game. It was the best thing and worst thing. And yeah, it was something which wasn't 100%, but look, who does play 100% nowadays, you know? So
I guess that game has become kind of the non-selection of Zebo for that game has become something of an issue retrospectively, kind of in the end of the Zebo era, and you're the player who in people's minds replaces him. So you wake up the next couple of days to stories going, Zebo should have started the game. What was that actually like to live through?
For me, it was, for me, it was great because I got selected ahead of a Lion, again, ahead of an international. So it was great for me. And I was confident going into the game because obviously I had a hell of a season, kind of like a breakthrough season. And I was ready to take the game. And we didn't perform on a team basis. It didn't happen. And I think I got subbed. I didn't have a great game either, don't get me wrong. And it kind of all fell after the game, it all fell in the way of Simon should have been picked. And for me, I've always been pretty good in not listening to media and all the rest of it, but obviously that was something which was printed in almost the headlines, you know. And I was, we're talking 3 years ago now, so I was 23 at the time. And it's something which has just made me stronger, I suppose, in that aspect in relation to media and rugby and all the rest of it. But the feeling at the time was great, to be honest with you. It's great because I got selected against, a very good player. It's not, I've got nothing really else to say about that. It was great. That's the only thing I could think about at the time.
Yeah, well, look, that's a really good attitude to have as a professional sports person. You've got to go out there and think, yeah, I should be here. I mean, it's my job to prepare to the point where
100%. 100%. That's the thing. I mean, you speak to fighters as well. If a fighter goes into a fight thinking, "Oh, I shouldn't be here," well, then he's already lost. You know yourself, speaking to a lot of sports people. I knew the first day that I rocked up to Munster, my first senior session, that I was better than him. If I'm not going to have that attitude, then what's the point in being there? And looking back now, me and Zebo, he made me definitely a lot better, and I think I made him a hell of a lot better as well. We had that rivalry, you could say, on the training field, and it obviously came down to a decision towards the end of the season in a game where it could have gone 50-50, and look, the coach picked one, and it's not as if I can say, look, I'm not sure about this, I was 100% taking that on.
Look, it is a great attitude to have, I think, and it's great to hear that too, because sometimes young players get into a game and then the shitstorm that comes afterwards, it's like, oh well, actually, your bulletproof confidence might be rocked, but that clearly isn't the case for you. Why we haven't heard as much about you since is clearly down to injury.
Yeah, well, you can say that, but at the same time, I do look back and I think from that game, whether it would be coaches, well, they're the people that select the team, probably lost maybe a lot of confidence or trust because on such a high stage, I missed a tackle against Teddy Thomas. Look back on the season, I had a great season, but it's one it's the standout one, and it has to really be kind of based on that, as well as the injury. It'll be like a 50-50 decision, I suppose, because like anybody, you come back from injury, you're getting given opportunities, but maybe that didn't really happen for me because of the game.
So there's a picture in the coaches' heads when they're coming to select the team, and no matter what you're doing in training and no matter how well you're performing, the picture that they have is this kind of endless loop of a missed Tackle in the Champions Cup semi-final.
Yeah, I suppose. Does
it feel that way? Is that what it feels like for you?
Look, at the end of the day, if you're saying you feel great and you feel like you can take the pitch, then physically you're 100% right. So then it must be something else. So,
Yeah. No, that's totally fair enough. And maybe if you go back in retrospect, do you say you're 100%, or you kind of have to because that's your gig, isn't it? Like,
it's my job. It's my job, and it's on the biggest stage possible. So you'd be stupid not to.
And again, I think the whole weirdness of professional sports careers is that frequently you find the best place for you eventually. And look, as we said, it's very early on in Connacht, but the Connacht selectors don't have that in their heads. They're not thinking of that game. They're thinking of what you've done in training for them this week, last week, and the previous 2 weeks, and how you've shown up. And then the first bit of tape they get on you is the game in the Aviva, where it looks like your back line is fully functioning.
Yeah. And that's it. It's just so refreshing. Whether or not it is the right place for me, time will tell. But at this moment in time, it really does. I'm arriving through the gates with a smile on my face every day I'm in, and it just feels great. And I do think I am one of those players where he's training a certain way and enjoying it. Happy fighter is a dangerous fighter, So I do feel very happy with the decision ultimately that I suppose Connacht had to make on me, and the decision I had to make on it as well. So I'm very happy with that at the moment.
Well, it's transformative. What a little bit of belief from outside can do for you. Again, you have to be self-motivated.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, to be in a system where they're like, okay, that guy, he's our guy, he's going to be able to do this anytime he gets the ball. So we're building around this, and the expectation then becomes self-fulfilling.
Yeah, that's it. And it's tricky because, for me, I always knew what I could do. But for some of the boys here at Connacht, they hadn't seen what Alex Wootton could do the past 2 seasons. So it's kind of nice to be able to play at the weekend and show a little bit of what I could do. And it's all about that kind of like camaraderie and building relationships on the field. Building relationships on the field is really where it all happens. You can train as much as you want, you can talk as much as you want, but as soon as you put your body on the line and each other of your teammates respect you a bit more, and it's all about building that.
I can see too that when things at Munster were going the way they were, that the opportunity to continue with the Irish adventure, it's like, well, I'm in so far that I need to make sure that I give this every last opportunity for it to succeed. Was it difficult, the decision in the first place to come over? Your dad's from County Down, I think, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. He's, as the story goes, he and his brother and sister were born up there, and he, cut a long story short, was in a childcare home, and then his father moved back to Macclesfield in England, and ended up coming back over, collecting the kids and taking them back. So that's how my family ended up over there. But yeah, that's something which was definitely in my head with making the decision. I had conversations with Joe throughout that season when I was playing regularly with Munster, and obviously overnight, or however long it was, they stopped because you weren't playing rugby. So out of sight, out of mind, I suppose. And ultimately, I moved over here to play rugby, and that wasn't really happening. So It was really an easy decision for me to come to Connacht because of those two things, hopefully find form, play rugby. And then secondly, I know then if I'm playing rugby, then there's an outside shot of something to work towards for the Irish stuff.
It sounds like there's quite an amazing backstory there, and I'm not going to push on it at all, but like I can see how family history becomes entwined with the desire to do something in a job, and it's a very powerful motivating factor when you're playing with loads of different conflicting emotions.
That's something as well which I would have honed in quite a lot over the past 2 seasons. It was always about growing up in England anyway, it was always about just wanting to be a professional rugby player. And then when it happened, it was kind of like, well, not necessarily what now, but it had to refocus on the next goal, where you can say for 20 years of my life, well, not necessarily 20 years, but whenever I started playing rugby, it was always to do one thing. And then that one thing happened, I suppose, throughout that season. And it was about recalibrating and setting out new goals. So I've learned a lot of things like that, of the outside motivation, which kind of makes me tick. And that's definitely something which I'm putting in place now, which wasn't there before.
I know there's already speculation about next season and what comes beyond it, and I'm not going to push on any of that too, because the future is not written, and you get to write it yourself over the next couple of months. But it must be unbelievably exciting to be back playing rugby after such a long layoff, and not just COVID, but all the way back to the original injury and the surgery and all the niggles around that, and the trip to Sweden, and then for it to go so well. Again, I understand the whole point about trying to be mellow in the middle, but a little bit of you must be going, woohoo!
Yeah, look, I'd be ignorant to tell you I wasn't happy. I am very happy, and so is my family and all the rest of it. But I just have to look at what made me get there, or what made me get to that point on Sunday. And that really was all the hard work through the coronavirus and the lockdown, and all the positivity through what the lads were doing here at Connacht in the 2 months leading up to that game. And I think just keep the main thing, and keep what I was doing through lockdown and through those 2 months of pre-season effectively going, and hopefully have the same outcome. I think that will be the priority for me anyway.
Well, listen, it's a great story. We love our comeback stories in all aspects of life and sport. And I know this one's not finished by any means, but it's great to see you back, cutting a swathe through the Ulster defence at the weekend.
Thank you.